Okay. Welcome everybody to the Heaven and Earth podcast. I'm Crystal.
And I'm Matthew.
And today we are interviewing a great teacher and healer that we've both worked with when we were in Pittsburgh. Feel super grateful to have caught her while she was in Pittsburgh because she's all over the world and back in Kenya, where she's from, where she runs a really beautiful and phenomenal herbal program, the Well of Indigenous Wisdom. We're gonna get into all the things that make Ola so special and such a genius and such a needed medicine in this world after the astrological weather report.
Yeah, so right now the moon is actually applying a conjunction to Jupiter within 2 degrees. This is a very close conjunction in the sign of Gemini. And that's really a perfect conjunction for working with our plant Tulsi. This is a plant of teaching and wisdom and abundance that also works on the nervous system. It's kind of also introducing the plant to it at the same time. But it's a very good alignment.
Yeah, so Ola has some special words about this beautiful teacher and beautiful plant. So take it away, Ola.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm just pouring a little more of some Tulsi in my cup. As you can see, I'm sipping on it. I have a little leaf in there, well, a big leaf compared to other forms of Tulsi. This
Wow.
is, yeah, this is so we're saying Tulsi, we're using this Sanskrit word from Ayurveda, but this plant is found all over the world, and there's several species. I can't remember how many, but I know there's over 20 species of the oxymum, and then species, right? So I think one that we're very used to is the oxymum tenifolium and the oxymum sanctum, which is a Krishna and the Vana. But what I'm drinking is gratisum. Gratisum. Yes, gratisum. So let me just take a sip so I can tell you how great it is. So I'm drinking mine. I know you're probably surprised, like, why is it milky, right? Well, it's true. I've relocated to Kenya, but I feel like I'm a worldwide herbalist because I've been in several continents, right? The Caribbean and the US and here. Here, Oxymum gratisum or African basil or African Tulsi has been used often. It's made with milk. And so it's very similar to a lot of Ayurvedic traditions. We use milk and a lot of butter or ghee here, clarified butter here, animal fat, to help with the absorption of the medicine into the body. So I'm drinking mine today with milk. It's actually oat milk. It's not real cow milk. So, but it tastes great still. So I'm on Maasai land. My great-grandfather is Maasai, and I happened to land here right where he was from. And here in Maasai land, we call this herb Olumuran. Yes, Olemuran. So I know you know the Sanskrit, the Vana and the Krishna and the Rama. But here it's also called Olemuran, and I'm sure your listeners are from all over the world and have their own name for this amazing plant. What can I tell you about it? Botanically, it's a Lamiaceae, so it's in the mint family. It's it grows just like any basil. You have a stalk-like flower, very small white flowers. And this one, sometimes, of course, they're purple. I think I have about 3 or 4 varieties of basils, not Tulsis, but, well, oxymums, I should say. So I guess they are Tulsis. And I like to use this for stomach pains. It's a really good analgesic, at least this gratissimum. It's used here a lot for viral, the tropics we're always battling with different parasites and microbes, bacterias and things, because of course it's a perfect environment for them to thrive. So this is one of the plants that's used in formulas for repelling, microbe parasitic infections like leishmaniasis. which is really big here in the water. So I like to
Oh,
drink this often. And then when you drink it with milk, it really clears the parasites even more,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
So we can see those traditions of the tropics, right? Um, yeah, did you want to say something? I heard you say something, still. I wasn't sure.
Nope.
oh,
No? Oh,
I think you might have psychically heard me. So the drinking the herbs with milks or, in fats. You mentioned that that's like, common in the tropics, but I feel like that
yeah.
that might be one of those pieces of folk wisdom that at one point was all over the world, right? Because fats are, so important
Yeah,
for, you know,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
for the brain, for many things. But I feel like that it's become less and less common, right? At least in the West, including the,
Yes.
the milks or the fats in with formulas.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, the West is more like just boil it up in water and drink with sugar or honey. But here, it's very much no sugar, no honey. And it's always, it's either, milk by itself, milk or fat, or both inside a formula. So even coffee, I've been drinking my coffee. I love coffee, which is from here as well. And so it's a it's just on another level for me. And I wasn't much of a coffee drinker in the US, and I know it has this horrible name in the US, but here it's a very traditional, but it's you drink your coffee with fats,
Mhm.
with ghee. And I think that's just a whole changer. It just changes the entire connection with coffee. So it's the same with most of our herbs. Yeah. There's a medicine man here. He came to me. He was injured recently, and he was injured by his rib, right by his descending colon, and he couldn't go, and he hadn't gone for 4 days, had a bowel movement for 4 days, and so I gave
Wow.
him something, and he wanted to go, but the pain, right? So something for pain, something to help him relax, and then also go and get everything out. And I didn't tell him to put any fats, but he's like, I was using it. I used it for 2 days, and I felt my stomach, wanting to go, and I felt the urge, but things just weren't happening. Then he said, I put fats in it. I put a big spoon of fat, and he said, "Whoa, the world just changed."
Mhm. Mhm.
Everything. So in Ayurveda, actually, I don't know this for traditional Chinese medicine, but I definitely know this for Ayurveda and African medicine, that fats is one of the ways to transport your medicine to the location you want it to go.
Yeah.
It's
Nice.
very localized. Yeah. So we're looking at Tulsi as this nervine overall. All the Tulsis I know are nervines. And actually, they're all microbials. Tulsi, common Tulsi, the one we're used to in the US, is very good for COVID. Actually, there's research out there. I don't know if you've seen it, but
Haven't.
for herpes, for
Oh,
herpes, which COVID is one of those types of one of the types. Holy basil is excellent, and it would be excellent topically, which we've used it
Wow.
traditionally for that here in Africa, in Ayurvedic medicine as well. Here we use this plant and many other variations of the oxymums for herbal baths, spiritually to work with fortune, working with fortune. So really bringing in peace and fortune into your life. You feel like you're losing a lot or you're not feeling fortunate. Generally, the herbalist and the medicine person will advise for you to take a bath with this and maybe other herbs in the formula. And I believe it's the same thing with the Ayurveda in the Ayurvedic tradition.
Mhm.
Um, Not baths as much, but oils are very much recommended. Of course, the oils are also good for like hair and skin, but the baths also support that hair and skin, but that's superficial. On a spiritual level, also bringing peace, prosperity, and things like that. And also growing the plant, having the plant nearby. When I was living in Puerto Rico, the Tulsi Oxymum sanctum, wow, all over. I was like Mama Holy Basil because the plant loved me. and planted its beautiful woody, I mean, it became this beautiful woody sub-shrub. I call it a sub-shrub, right? Because not quite a shrub, but it's like, but and the similar shape right at the doorstep of my house. And that's such a blessing. That is seen as a blessing in the Vedic traditions, right? It's seen as, like, yeah, we are blessing you with the blessings of, the holy ones, right?
Because in the Vedic tradition, she is like a goddess.
She's an avatar of
Yeah,
Lakshmi, I
yeah,
think. Yeah,
Brahmi.
yeah.
Yeah, this is for the Brahmi lineage, for spiritual priests, and which I am a priestess, and so the plants know us, right? The plants know who to what when they when we're doing our work, right? They know where to go, and they know that they trust that those individuals will use them for the work, with the work. And I think also plants are allies, right? So in a sense, she knows that I'm doing my work. And so, hey, you need my support. Drink this sometimes, bathe in this sometimes, give it sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So
And
that's
so
amazing.
and and that's so the way that you're speaking about Tulsi, I think, a lot of our viewers are probably, pretty familiar with, that kind of language of, plants as intelligences who, come to you just as much as you seek them. But that's so you're a unique teacher, and one of the reasons I've always, really admired you, right, is because you bring that spiritual power and that, spiritual, this indigenous insight in alongside a scientific and clinical perspective, right? Could
Yes.
you could you speak to a little bit about like how that merger of your work occurred,
Yes.
or how you see yourself as bridging those worlds?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting perception that you've had and several people have. Um, I don't often think about it for myself. I think I just follow through with what spirit, what purpose, asks me to do. And I certainly am a human just like all of us, here we're all here to learn and to have experiences. So, I'm there as well. Um, I think for me, it's because I am from here, from this continent, and this continent has a lot of history, and we have our own culture here. And even though I've been, lived in the US for a very long time, I lived in Puerto Rico also for a very long time. And I feel a part of all those lands and all the people I've met, like you all, beautiful souls that I've met around. You're all my family. But I am here from here ancestrally in this lifetime. So, I'm born into something that also carried me around the world. And so, with that being said, I had to always remember that. I had to remember always the stories of my grandparents and the stories of the earth here, the stories of our culture and our traditions and our people, to preserve that because it meant so much to my ancestors and it means so much to my ancestors. I can't let it go. Even though many people do. Many people go to Europe or wherever and they're like, oh, that's the past, who cares about it? For me, I couldn't. I can't. It doesn't. So I had to think about how do I merge this and keep preserving what this important wisdom from this land. How do I carry that around the world and speak to people in a way they can understand me? And so it began with, okay, go get a higher education and let's see if that will help you to get more languaging. And it did. It wasn't what I expected though. It was more of like, oh, I study, it was also for me to learn like, oh, you can, this plant like Tulsi, it has a lot of flavonoids, right? Okay, what are flavonoids, right? These antioxidant properties, right? What do they do? Oh, the cellular, intercellular, connection of just like, taking care of free radical, it's a free radical scavenger, right? Eating up all these tumors and things that we don't want in our body, mutations. And that's language itself, right? That I needed to learn. Like right here, if I spoke like that here, people would be like, what? What are you saying?
Mhm.
But so here it's Tulsi. Oh, it's so protective, right? Drink it. It will protect you from all kinds of evil spirits, right? And somewhat the traditional Chinese medicine has a similar thing. You know, they say evil heat, right? Evil
Mhm.
cold, evil wind, right? And I get it. I get it because they're like, it's merging that science of the West and science of the East. But both are science. Both are languages of science. And there's none that's
Right.
superior or different from another,
Right.
right? It's just
Yes.
language. So
Mhm.
that's how I came here. I got here to be more clinical and keep the indigenous wisdom because it's two languages that I'm speaking, and it's to connect people, and it's also to inform people that both can be bridges to understanding each other, and we together with both we can progress, you know. Here in Africa there's a saying, I didn't hear about this in the Caribbean as much, but I think islands have the same culture, even though I didn't hear about it being spoken, but we definitely hear it being spoken about here in Kenya at least. That we really welcome, we're very hospitable, we welcome guests because they come with different information that we're curious about, and we want to add that. And we believe that if we add that information to our own, we'll be better people.
So it's naturally syncretic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would love to speak about that a little bit more because that's a complicated topic, right? So it's like I love
Mm-hmm.
what you're I completely like love what you're saying. And the way that I kind of frame it, right? It's like the science of the West is a particular kind of it's a particular lens.
Yeah.
It's a story, right?
Yeah.
It's a story that
Yeah.
you watch and observe occurring in a particular way, right? And and these stories in the way with the way that you're bridging, they all make the same they all land in the same kind of truth, and they can assist in finding more details or more perspectives at which to look at, you know, the thing in itself that it's pointing towards, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think syncretism, you know, we both think syncretism is really important, but it's complicated, right? Because of issues of
Appropriation.
appropriation, colonization, right? Like how do
Mm-hmm.
you how do you carry that? And is there like
Mm-hmm.
are there any keys that help
Mm-hmm.
us to like do that work of, you know, developing different ways of seeing, which we need, right, in order to, you know,
Yeah.
like get through this age, but do that in like a respectful way. Do you see what I'm
Yeah.
asking?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I know it's a very important concern in Western cultures because, and Western cultures is here as well, right? There's people who live like that here. So it's
Right.
Western culture is not just the West, the so-called West, because we're
Mhm.
not also not flat. Anyway, um, I know that it's a big concern within maybe this culture of capitalism, you know, a
Okay.
culture that is founded on that, right? Um, for me, I see it as, you know, we've got to come. I think where we are or where we've been, I think we're also changing. Like there's a lot of changes going on right now, huge ones.
Yeah.
But where we have been, we've been sorting out what just happened. You know, what happened 500 years ago? It's the whole planet, right? Everybody. What just happened? Because I think we all felt abused. We all got abused by some people who put themselves in a specific situation and lied to all of us.
Mhm.
Whether it's, you know, hey, yeah, go, you know, go to that land, there's nobody living there, and you know, take some people there and plant sugarcane, and then, you know, sugar is transported back to Europe, and people are buying sugar, but their teeth are falling out and they have diabetes, right? And everybody's has been lied to. right? And even those who come back with the sugar is just like, yes, it's a beautiful land and we're just, accepted and everything is just lovely and fine. Nobody in that society knows exactly what was happening, or the lies of, oh, those are just animals and they're just evil people and don't, believe in them. Christianity is the only way,
Yeah.
Jesus is the only way. Like the lies have been so embedded in almost 500 years of all our human family. So
Mhm.
the synchronicity happened, used to happen. And so now if we can just take the liars out and the manipulators out, the capitalists out, it was happening. Chinese were coming to Africa before, it's now, Europeans. One reason why the Maasai have like checkered blankets, there's a common looking material that is called the tradition of the Maasai, the traditional cloth. Maasais weren't wearing cloth, they were wearing animal skins. They
Mhm.
have that tradition because if you look at Irish cloth, it looks very similar. Irish used to come
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
and trade with the Maasai and then go back and they had their thing. I'm sure some people
Whoa.
fell in love and whatever, whatever. So we didn't have like, it was a time where we all respected each other until the liars and manipulators and capitalists came into the equation. And so now that's when appropriation starts to be an issue, because now you're hitting a tender point because everybody's been hurt, especially those who've been oppressed.
Sure.
And so it's like, no, I'm holding on to this because you took my land, and so you can't have my hairstyles and my, beadwork. No, right? Because you've already taken everything else. You even killed my priests and
Mhm.
raped our women. So no. So that's, for me, that's the energy of appropriation, is that it comes from that. So once we sort that out, which I think we are, then I think we'll come back to synchronicity. How do we evolve together as a human family?
Yeah.
Irish bringing blankets or Scottish bringing blankets is great because, it's cold here sometimes. And so those blankets have been very helpful.
Mhm.
Can't keep
Yeah.
on killing animals.
I think I think that's an extremely important point. And like historically, human wisdom traditions are always sharing and cribbing off of each other to a certain extent, always borrowing, always swapping teachings in and out. I mean, like we wouldn't have our Hellenistic Alexandrian traditions if it wasn't for massive amounts of syncretism between Arabs, Jews, Greeks, Egyptians, Romans, all kind of coming together and sharing notes.
Mhm.
And that's where I think a lot of at least personally, I think a lot of our most profound wisdom comes out of that sharing of cultures.
Yes.
But then it's difficult when there's so much wounding involved in the last couple centuries around stealing that inappropriate.
Yeah. 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 And usually the wound comes because it's kind of like our situation right now with resources, right? Gold, oil, whatever in Congo, let's say, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that we can share the gold. That's not a problem. We don't need all the gold for us just by ourselves, right? But the point is like you're coming in, you're taking, creating wars amongst us, we're killing each other, and like that energy is not is not evolving us. It's
Mhm.
greedy. Yeah.
Mhm.
And like you mentioned, the Hellenistic, right? Egyptians, Romans, everybody came together to create this Hellenistic. Imagine before that there wasn't, right? Because there wasn't a coming together. So people evolved. We are evolving when we synchronize.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when we also still respect who we are, right? I still respect me as Olatokunboh from Kenya, and you respect you from where you are, who you are, and your parents and the land that has brought you to this place. Um, but we come together as we are now weaving to evolve where you are with the land. Yeah.
Right.
Tulsi is really having this talk here.
Yeah.
And we like we need that. Like it feels like I'm so glad that we're having this conversation because it feels necessary, because in order to, because we've lost so much, right? Because of these liars. We've
Mhm,
lost so much of our traditions, like, the Celtic, the Irish tradition,
mhm,
which, most of, a lot of our ancestors are from.
mhm.
It's like the
Yeah.
English did a real, the elite English did a real job on them. There's not a whole, we have one ceremonial song left
Mhm.
from from the Gaelic, and it's for the season that's that's coming up, that's right now. It's from Beltan, right?
Mhm.
But there used to
Yes.
be so many other songs. So it's like, if you want to connect and engage in the turning of the wheel and engage in these important spiritual practices that help us to human, you have to pull from, we have to pull from elsewhere in order to restore that, just that place, that role that humans play in our ecosystems, our spiritual ecosystems, right?
And rightfully so, because with respect, of course, rightfully so. Because if we've been synchronizing before, let's say, the 500 years, then, there's bits and pieces in other people's traditions. That's why I always teach all Indigenous people are the same. I mean, I've studied a lot and been with a lot of Indigenous people in so many places, everywhere, all the way from the Celtic down to the Zulu. I've been all over. And there's no one who doesn't have a medicine wheel. Everybody talks about a medicine wheel, for instance. Everybody talks about the four directions. Everybody talks about colors, and like we have one, what's slightly different is, okay, you might have buffalo, I might have deer, I don't have deer, that those are
Right.
some of the different things. But in essence, the whole bones of it is four directions. You may add a couple more directions
Mm-hmm.
depending on that where you live and how you people think. But we all can come together and say, yes, there are four directions, and let's honor them in a circle, because that's everybody does that. Everyone, everyone. So we have been synchronizing and learning from each other, and that's what we're meant to do as human beings, spiritual human beings. We're supposed to do that because we're here to evolve. I believe we're here on the planet in school to evolve.
And I just wanted to, you brought up that you've studied in so many different indigenous traditions, and we know that you've been through you've been through a lot of initiations, more
Yes.
initiations than anyone else I know. It's like, it's such an honor to get to get to speak with you and study with you and encourage everybody
Yeah.
watching study with Lily. She's amazing. But would you mind sharing a little bit about how those initiations changed you, or how those, working with these traditions have, empowered you as a healer and a teacher?
Mm. Yeah. Mm. Yes. I think they're personal. Not that I'm not saying that I'm not talking about it, but there were personal, I think all initiations are personal,
Yeah.
actually. Um, for me specifically, they were personal for the fact that those 500 years had destroyed some parts of my family. And my last name is Obasi, right? That means that um, the priest is still here, right? That's what my last name actually
Wow.
means. Yeah. And so my father was actually a chief and from Nigeria, and has many, many children, always had female lady children. So he had one male, and that one, my brother didn't make it. He passed away. Um, but I think when I look at the story and weave out the story, I see what has happened with my father. So my father was this like really big shot, scientist, right? You can Google him. He's on there. And first, a pioneer, right? Very intelligent. He studied meteorology. So he was very into
Wow.
astrology, by the way. Yeah, he was
Wow.
into that. I'm wondering to myself, like, I would have really loved to have had more of a connection. He passed away, at a time I wasn't able to, I wasn't yet here to ask him these questions. But you know, I've read some of his speeches, wondering about the stars and planets and life on other planets and things like that. But in a space that's the United Nations, right? So I'm sure, I know he was limited to what he could speak, or some things were censored, right? Um, and so why I'm talking about him is because he did come from a priest lineage. He's a chief, come from actually a royal lineage. And in Yoruba culture is Yoruba. So in our culture in Yoruba land, you have chiefs in different villages. And so there's cycles. A chief could rule for 30 years. I mean, a king could rule for 30 years, and then you look for another chief. That chief becomes installed as a king and then rules for 18 years. And then you go to another village. So it's never really like, oh, you were the king, you have a son, your son inherit. No, it's not like that. It rotates within families.
Oh,
So my father's family's time came in the 90s. I believe it was early 90s or late 80s. And he refused it. He didn't want it. So he said it was full of fetish things and things of the past. And he's a Christian
oh,
and he works for the UN. And so I don't need that, which is exactly what brought him to where he is, right? So how can you do that, right? That's why when you asked me, I had to preserve what I know. I couldn't throw that out and be like, well, I'm American, I'm from Pittsburgh, and I'm just, all about just, Midwest herbs. I had to be like, no, I'm also Kenyan and I'm going to bring some Africa here. I don't care if I'm in Pittsburgh, nobody's African. It's all right. We are all family. So he denied that. And many things happened to all of us. We're all trying to sort it out still. When you see families like struggling, you try to do this and you're wondering, well, I'm doing everything right. Why is it all flopping? Well, you look back to your ancestry and you're like, oh, okay. So if you are a chief and you refuse to be a king and it's in your bloodline, it's like a bad thing. It's there's not many blessings that come through because you're cutting off an old ancestral blessing from long, 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 long time, ancient days when people's power, the power of the word it reaches to this moment. So this is the issue. This is the issue. The issue is that people disconnect from their past and from what is meant to be for them. I don't even remember exactly what the question is, but I think it was something like that. And so why it's important to preserve our history and our indigenous ways is for the blessings for ourselves and for the future generations.
the way you're talking about it, what I'm feeling is like it's the creation of like a kink in a hose or a kink in a kink in like a telephone wire that doesn't allow particular communications or
Message.
power
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
come through. So
Mhm.
that's like we talk about like the loneliness epidemic, right? I feel like this is like the root of the loneliness epidemic, what you're talking
Absolutely.
about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was thinking about that too. I know the last question was about initiation and why I went through all the initiations. It was personally to find myself, to find the priestess in myself. I didn't know it was there until I went back home and kept on going back. And it was like a secret, because
Wow.
we weren't supposed to know we were from this lineage. And then they're like, what do you do? I'm a herbalist. Oh, really? Yes. Oh, yeah, actually your great grandfather was a very famous herbalist. Oh, really? Really? What was his name? Oh, there's even a song about him. Then they sing it, and it's like, what? That's a powerful song,
Whoa.
and then why was he so powerful? Oh, yeah, by the way, we're from a royal, and I'm like, what? And so like, well, we need to validate this in the now, right? So we need to bring this forward because king royalty is meant to be serving and teaching the people, right? That's what that means, right? That's what it means, at least in our tradition. So that's that. The other question is, yes, as far as us now, well, you were talking about now being a moment of what was it? Moment, what did you say? What was the word you used? The words you used?
Well, that we're isolated, right?
That we're
Like,
isolated. Yeah, the
yeah.
moment of
Loneliness. Yeah.
loneliness.
Loneliness.
Mhm. Yeah, I think about that. Like, I think that's why it's important for us to do these things, right? To talk to each other and like find our tribes because if you don't, you feel like you're crazy, or are you the only one thinking the way you think? Yes, it's the loneliness has come out of that capitalism, that greedy, they've left us empty, just like the land that they dig up
Yeah.
from and they just keep empty. Um, it's a pandemic right now because we are not, well, some of us are medicine people, some of us are, telepath, different individuals. We have our different talents and we're not being given the space to express it because we were told that's bad. And, only go to a church, and then you feel lonely in the church because nobody understands you there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so that what I had with the initiations, right? Like doing that, or what would you recommend, right, for that? So the way that the way that I'm hearing you and the way that I'm feeling this, it's like that connection to your ancestors, or those tools that we have to let our
Mhm.
ancestors speak through us,
Mhm.
right? Or like or guide us, or feel into our birthright. It's like if we do the work to open up those channels, it's like also easier for us to find our place in our community, right? That like puts us in the place where we belong, right? And
Yeah.
that can bring balance to our communities, our society,
Yeah.
maybe our world. Would you say that that's
Absolutely. I
accurate?
love the way you put that. You really like really hit the nail on the head. Like, finding your place. Initiation helps you find your place. Yeah. So I'll give you my experience with being initiated in the Taino tradition in the Caribbean, which for me, the only, even after being through that initiation and the others, the one that's most meaningful to me is, of course, the one from here, that I was initiated in my own village, my own hometown, right? Because that for me is like my ancestral connection, right? That's for me personally, just for Olatokunboh, right?
Right.
Um, but the other ones were guiding me home. And so I come back to all homesickness is all sickness is homesickness, right? Like
Mm.
guiding you home, you've got to find your way home. It's Wizard of Oz, right? Finding your
Mhm.
way home, back to yours. But the journey is the whole thing. I'm thinking of Joseph Campbell right now, if your listeners
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
wanna go there, right? You're going on the journey. But you've started here, but you're coming back here. But you got to go on the journey to discover why you're here at this point. So that's why I said the most important initiation for me was the one from home.
Yeah.
However, the journey had to open up my eyes and help me realize what home was offering me. What was I to do at home? How was I to hold home? All those things. And home, of course, can be physical, like it is for me here. Home can also be your soul, your body, inside your body, right? So for those who, I know many people are immigrants from like several generations. So,
Yeah.
Ireland may not be a home anymore, right? So it's a US. And so I'm saying that as far as like you can still do this as considering your body as home, feeling home in yourself, acknowledging your inner self. So Taino tradition, Native American from the North, Native American from the Caribbean, all taught me the way, the steps, the tools to get there. Reminding me because of the synchronicities that, oh, we sing like that. Yeah, I know these songs, even though we're singing Christian Anglican songs right now, but no, like there's these songs, oh, you wear feathers so proudly. Native Americans are just in their regalia, and Africans now are like, no, that's old things. That's uh,
Oh.
poverty things. We don't do that anymore. We wear clothes now. And so it's like, wait, you're so proud in your feathers. And we used to wear feathers. Actually, we wear exactly the same feathers on our head.
Huh.
What's the name of that? there's a rainmaker from my mom's village. He wore a feather when he was going to call the rain, and the rain would come. And it was like, a specific peacock feather. And I'm like, okay, so why do you wear a feather in the Lakota tradition or in the Iroquois tradition? Why are you wearing a feather in the Taino tradition? Oh, because it falls in the air energy, the air element, connects us with the wind. Oh, no wonder the rainmaker in my village can just bring rain through with his feather. Of course, there's other tools in connected. So it's like, oh, okay, you're bringing me home. I understand now. I'm understanding, bringing me closer. We should probably do this as well. That's why synchronicity is so important, right?
Yeah, yeah. You understand the common truth and the threads. When I was like, if 5, 6, 7 different cultures are all doing the same thing, they can't all be wrong. It's pointing at something that's true. It's like objectively true.
And you're proudly wearing it. Like, I should proudly be wearing mine too. Like, I can leave you, bring back the pride in myself, bring back the, that it's okay. Because obviously that 500 years of brainwashing taught us that it's not okay. So, and you're still doing it. It's okay for you. Wow, I need to learn from you. How did you preserve this? You experienced within the 500 years similar things. How come you're still there? That's what the initiations taught me.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, and I just want to say that it wasn't one way. Like, there were things, let's say, in the Taino community that were missing for them. And I was like, wait, in our tradition, we do this and this. And they're like, let's put it there. Oh, it works. My gosh, it's the same thing here. Yay. There was this exchange of, it really, a lot of work, 10 years of work of just really sitting with smoke, which we do here as well, and pipe smoke, right? Which all Indigenous people do in a circle, and exchanging and talking and meditating to understand life and who we are and why we're here.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful.
That's how we get our power back.
Yes, this is empowerment. Initiation is empowerment. It's the journey of empowerment. I think that's what I would say. It's the journey. I know Joseph Campbell calls it the journey of the hero, the hero's journey. I call it the journey of empowerment, because power is spiritual. And that's why 500 years was happening, because they wanted to take all the power away and keep it for themselves, because it's just like the gold. They're also doing that with the power of each individual on the planet. And keep it for themselves so that they can use it against us.
And that's why they're invested. I feel like there are all of these ways in which the media and the powers that be are still invested in finding ways to disempower and separate us and keep us from talking to each other, keep us from sharing these tools, and keep us from, as you're saying, displaying ourselves proudly, right? Like we still have to keep, like you're saying, like keep our feathers, keep our spiritual tools, keep our allies in a closet. I don't know if you probably do that. In Texas right now, there's this bill to I think make it, that would make illegal like all of these native herbs. Like
what?
All of these. Yes. It's really bad. So, I mean,
that's not serious.
Things are getting really bad. It's like marigolds. I shit you not, marigolds.
Morning glory.
Morning
glory seeds, because they have
because of the
journey. Exactly, this thing that grows naturally.
Kava, kratom, which, as you know, they started the opiate addiction, and kratom has been like absolutely essential for getting so many people off of opiates. There's just a huge list, like all of the amanitas, right, which are of course just extremely good anti-anxiety medicines that grow naturally here, right? So just lots of native plants and lots of plants that people use to survive late stage capitalism are in danger of being completely illegal in the state of Texas, which is huge, right? And so many people.
They know that that they're powerful. Anything that they go against, they know it's powerful. That's why they do it.
Yep.
If it wasn't, they wouldn't. But the earth always wins. And we've been through this before, cycles of these type of entities that have been on the planet, many times in other planets, many, many times, these many cycles, and they will not prevail. They're holding on to to take herbs out, they're holding on to the last threads. They're desperate.
They're
They're
desperate.
very desperate. But the thing is, we all see them now. And that's why I said we're really in an interesting time because every single human being on the planet Earth sees that their lies and the manipulation. They see the games that they've been playing for 500 years.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm.
It's a good reminder.
Very good reminder.
So I think there's going to be lots of people here who are inspired by this and realizing that really to connect to their power, especially white people are going to have to maybe connect to their ancestry or find teachers in other traditions. White people, quotes, well, yeah. But essentially, they're not going to rediscover themselves by staying in a Protestant church or a Catholic church, and that's not the answer. So I'm sure there's
Right.
going to be lots of people who are also maybe would like to study with you. Are there doors open
Oh,
for you?
yes.
Yes, yes, they are. School's changing a bit, so I would definitely have people go to my website, wellofindigenouswisdom.com.
Which we'll link.
Yes, well, if you kindly, thank you. And I'm also shifting things like from September, the school will basically be a lot of just videos, and then we'll have meetings because I want to have more personal connection with people again. So there'll be a whole bunch of videos, a different format than it has been for the past 12 years.
Mhm.
And well, not past 12 years, since about COVID. And just have more connection, but definitely different from 12 years, which would be that there would be these videos, you'll get these lessons, you can watch them at your own time, you'll buy a whole, package. And then I'll invite you either to the US, Puerto Rico, or Africa. Most people want to come to Africa, so that's an easy one for me. And come and stay here. Many students have found it very fulfilling to learn from other medicine people here and also to just be on the land of all our ancestors.
Of all our
All our
ancestors. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. There was one little piece, and I know I know that we're running late, but that I really wanted to ask you about. This is like kind of like a burning question from earlier, but we got onto different topics. Is it true, or can you speak to, so like we talked about how the Hellenistic tradition, was syncretization of, Egyptian, Greek, Babylonian, or Chaldean and Jewish Hebrew culture. But I've seen different things and was wondering if you knew, because I think our viewers would be interested, that the Egyptian religion itself was a syncretization of different African, indigenous, like sub-Saharan African indigenous
Yeah.
religions. And that's,
Oh, that's another topic. I mean, I know that this may not, many people don't like to hear this, but Egypt is African, is still African and
oh,
was
yes. Yeah,
African.
no. Yes. I just meant,
Yeah. And Egypt, as Kemet, was historically a place where everyone went to school, where people went to study. And I mean not like, ABCD, but spiritual school,
yeah,
behavior, like character, which in all African, including the North Africa, South Africa, that I've been to Egypt several times actually, and I've had a lot of good engaging conversations there, and also visited many pyramids and been in these spaces, really feeling the energy of the land, and it being a space where for us, for people on the continent, character, behavior is very important. It's something that was taught from a young age, how to, and I don't mean this like, oh, respect your elders type of thing, but more like the Ten Commandments, which we all know come from Egypt, right? And sort of like, you don't just kill things, and we see this with indigenous cultures, right? They may go hunting and then you pray over, what you've hunted, and there's a sacred way of hunting, right? Of taking life, right? So it's and even war, if there happens to be a war or something, there's blessings. And people coming back from war, there's blessings, and there's like a therapy place. Like this is what was taught, something that we don't have much anymore, right? You'd never leave a mother, a birthing mother by herself or after she's birthed. There's specific things that you would give, specific smokes that you would burn. So there are so many recipes that Egypt had that we also practice in the sub-Saharan Africa. So I have this copy of the Ebers Papyrus, right? And I read it, and there are words in it that I was like, what? This is words in my mother tongue, like pop and and these are mixtures. And then also the formulas are formulas that we find when we're working our priest work, like very strange things, like take the blood of a pigeon and then mix it with the feces of this, and then, mix it with the cornmeal, and then say these chants. You find that we do the same thing. We have the exact same thing, just maybe the language is different. So we have the exact thing, synchronicity, but also, not far, we're not far from each other, right?
It was because it was a learning center.
Yeah. So we go back to where we go, and then you say it in your language, but you're doing whatever you learned from there, and everybody goes in their places. So it's a central library, school, university place. Yeah. Kemet.
You can explore that more in a part 2.
Yeah, we'll explore that more in a part 2. Yeah, we're already
it's a deep thing. We're getting a little,
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah,
right,
thank you so much, Ola, for speaking with us. And yeah, we're gonna put links to work with you below. And yeah, highly encourage you to sit at the feet of this this beautiful priestess and elder if you get the chance. Right.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bless you all. Thanks. Thank you.